communicating anything ever is impossible. Why? So why am I even writing this? Besides, there's no conventional audience for this speech. There's no people around. But who needs people when I have the interested, empathetic waddles of the Antarctic penguins to observe as I repose here on this glacial cliff and capitulate my inadequate words? Who needs people when I'm at all times submerged in a teeming ecosystem of microorganisms, a teeming ecosystem of sentient beings? They listen. They listen as I expand and contract my diaphragm, pushing air up to the slimy, muscular folds of my larynx, where the air is sculpted to the tune of meandering, modulating sound waves, creating my ability to convey my subjectively organized neurological patterns in a simultaneous flow of occurrence, effortless, unconscious. Wow, I'm pretty damn cool. I digress. I have invoked you here today, great emptiness, great universe, all form and all life as a small, defiant H2O molecule, crying out to the void and suppressing one last time the latent understanding that it is the ocean, in order to reflect for a moment on the evanescent experience of one reality, the one that I've called mine. Before the Great Mushroom War of 2052, in which most of the humans annihilated themselves, I was very interested in a peculiar cultural phenomenon called music. Music was essentially imagination manifested as vibrations. Dear cold stones nestled in snow before me. It was quite strange. I remember all those years ago being affected to gyrate and contort my limbs and joints in rhythmic repetition, and raise and lower my feet, my arms too. All this by mere sound waves for reasons I've since not fully recollected. Oh dear, curious creatures burrowed in the warm, diminutive pores of the earth. I was even moved to tears by the intricacy and vulnerability and the meticulous watchfulness with which the particular groups of sound waves would be composed. Oh dear, ominous infinite sky. I even devoted time to learning how to manifest the sounds that I imagined, that I could imagine. Time that I was constantly aware of. The pervading social construct in those days, people believed that time was always depleting. Life was always losing its vitality. Experience would slip through your fingers like water. Experiences. I too was caught up in this exhilarating belief called time, caught up in this frenzy to fill my time with things that matter. I was obsessed with doing only what was meaningful to me. With this in mind, my time tall evergreen friends swaying in the cool breeze. With this in mind, I spent 40 years of my life with music. My interest began to form when I was a mere child with a small wooden stringed instrument that other humans called an ukulele. I remember one afternoon I was on vacation in southern North America with my family, strolling on wooden planks rested along the side of a beach. Ukulele in hand, I was stopped by a middle-aged man and his 3-year-old daughter. I peered into the damp, sullen eyes of a disgruntled toddler, her blue, flowery dress gently rippling in the breeze. "Play for her?" the man asked. At first, I found the prospect of unabashedly displaying my talents on a crowded beach boardwalk to be vapid and inconsiderate. Any 16-year-old unsuccessfully attempting to cultivate a guise of Holden Caulfield-esque disaffection would. However, noticing faint tear stains curling around the girl's cheekbones, I lackadaisically relented, thinking, what the hell? I knelt and strummed the epitome of ukulele songs, "Somewhere Over the Rainbow." The girl's disposition changed. The right corner of her mouth slanted upward in the slightest of grins, and I glanced up to find that every person around me was watching. As I felt that moment transpire before me and heard the free-spirited tones of the instrument, I was overcome by the pettiness of my previous misanthropy. I remember feeling floored by music's ability to control our emotions and connect people together. Perhaps the absence of other humans for me now, or for me to feel connected with now and since the war, is part of the reason that it's difficult for me to understand my past self's interest, curiosity, and fascination with this phenomenon and life in general. Although my overzealous but well-intentioned father signed me up for instrument lessons when I was merely 1 year old, I was largely a self-taught musician. When I was 12, I got my first bass guitar. From then on, "Keep it down, Lucas," was my mother's daily maxim. While I imagine most mothers would have to nag their 12-year-old sons to practice their instruments, my mother was simply hoping that I picked up miming. For all my childhood years, I practiced loudly and relentlessly, nearly all day during the summers. I was teaching myself to play the sounds that I loved to listen to, growing an ear for precision and a hand for movement. Over the next 20 years, I taught myself to play more instruments: the drums, the fiddle, the trumpet, an acoustic guitar, banjo, anything that I could find. I was the bassist for a psychedelic rock group affectionately dubbed ! With influences in reggae, blues, folk, and jazz music. Playing with these people, experimenting and exploring with them, really almost made me feel things. We won various human awards and even adoration from other humans. There were approximately 40 mellow melodic years of that. I especially loved the satisfaction of getting on stage with my friends, these people, and pouring my heart out to an appreciative crowd. There was a certain palpable connection that occurred between us and a crowd that really felt our music. We would transfer our emotions through melody to the crowd. They would give back with their reaction, and we would just play ping pong with emotional energy. I learned to use music to communicate complex emotions. I didn't have to say anything. It was only one stormy autumn night in 2052 when the band was persuaded to play at the new underground venue in Colorado that the world would come crashing down. The show was going to be canceled, and we had already lugged all the 1 million pounds of multicolored confetti, hundreds of giant balloons, and the enormous bouquet of lasers down from Cleveland, our last show. Cleveland was a state in North America was divided up into compartments, and Cleveland was one of those. So we decided to try out this progressive concert venue. In the middle of our set, during the song "All You Need Is Sleep," the ground shook and everything went black. I woke under 5 feet of earth with a broken leg, left leg, and broken nose, but alive. By mere randomness, I survived. Let me assure you, I was lucky. Weirdly lucky. After that, I spent the next 15 years wandering the earth, going from Barnes & Nobles to Barnes & Nobles, living in them as a matter of preference. I had much time to reflect. I learned until there was no more to learn. And then I came here to Antarctica because, well, it's pretty. That's it. That's my life. If I'm to wish for anything, it would be for music to continue to exist. But it didn't, and I don't have to, and I don't have any, but it didn't, and I have nothing more to say. I love this world, and I love this experience. I loved this world, and I loved this experience. I wish to return to being the ocean, to being everything. That's the end of my speech, but as a side note, this person committed suicide. This is a suicide.